Hello and welcome to the medicine with Girds and Te'o. Benny, firstly, I think we need to acknowledge some of the other people that have been involved in this little passion. Let's call it a passion project of ours.
Sure.
Prue and Dan, who are here, guys, who have opened up their lovely home for us and provided us with these beautiful chairs. Let's just spend a minute on the chairs. How are you feeling in that chair?
I feel comfortable. I feel like I'm willing to open up in this chair.
Yeah.
This reminds me a bit of a therapist chair.
Okay.
Not that I've been going a lot to
You can tell us about that later at some point.
But it feels really good.
Yeah, no, it's a beautiful chair. It's a beautiful home, and just want to thank you guys because it's been a big couple of weeks just trying to put all of this together so that we could come out and just chat about, let's chat about the NRL, chat about life, chat about some of our experiences, and just share some of the things that we get up to or the routines that we sort of we set ourselves through daily life and family life.
Yeah, absolutely. We're both, a few of my friends sort of asked me, how the hell are you and Ryan Girdler friends?
Why is that such a weird thing?
Well, we're probably different eras.
Okay.
You were, in the 90s. I was sort of.
I was early 2000s, brother.
Yeah,
I wasn't just in the 90s.
Late 90s, would you say?
Yeah, I'd say late 90s.
Late 90s.
Late 90s,
you
early 2000s.
finished 2004.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
I sort of picked up in 2007. So we've probably only been, friends for, a good 12 months.
Yeah.
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 But obviously some shared interests.
Yep.
And so coming together, doing a show, I think probably spending so much time at Triple M together, I think we probably see the game in a similar light, I think, and maybe a little bit different from other people.
Yeah.
I think we've both had some different experiences through travel. Both got young families, so
this
I think
is beautiful, mate.
Yeah, I just think
you should write a book.
People are trying to understand how we're hanging out, but I think that's the important thing about this show is that we see the game in a different light and willing to sort of express our experiences.
Well, I knew we were going to have a good friendship when, we were all Triple M. Was it Magic Round last year?
Yeah.
When we all went out,
yeah,
and we ended up together in some sort of seedy bar,
in
the early hours of the morning, just shooting the shit, and that's exactly. And from that day, when we've come together in the studio there, we've done a fair bit of work together since.
Yeah.
It's always been easy.
Yeah,
I love the way that for me, it's always important that we speak our truth, and I think that we do that quite well.
Yeah.
Not everyone always likes it, but this is a great platform just to share some of those thoughts, and I feel like I've been in commercial radio now for 12 years, and I'm really grateful for that position and to have a little bit of a voice in the game. I think it's great. Carries I take that responsibility, I'm quite seriously, and I think that it's just provided us this platform to come out and speak about different parts of the game and maybe build community, which we're really conscious of. I know you're a community-minded guy. And also maybe just pull back the curtain on other things other than the game or other things that we're interested in that people might find interesting.
Yeah. And I'm sort of going through that journey of, since retirement, my passion is coaching. My passion is competition. So I think I sort of see the day-to-day workings of a club from the bottom up, from signing academy kids around that age of 15, putting them in development squads all the way up to transitional. So I see it all. So I think that's really important part. And I'm in the community game at the moment.
Yeah.
And I love that space.
Yeah.
I just love the guys that I coach guys that go to work. They get up at 4 in the morning. They go to work.
Yeah.
They finish at 4 p.m. They come in. I flog them. They give up their weekends and they're playing their game. They love it.
That's interesting.
And I think we always forget that, don't we?
Well, I don't, because that's how I started.
Yeah.
So back when, in the early 90s, my first foray into NRL, I think it was called New South Wales Rugby League at the time, was 91. And back then, and as you can see, like weights, they weren't compulsory. It's like if you've got time to do weights after training because you had a full-time job, it was just a bonus.
Optional weights.
It was optional. Yeah, so I went through that, and where games were either every day at Saturday at 3 o'clock or Sunday, they weren't Thursdays and Fridays or Mondays or whatever it was, because guys had to navigate their way through normal life and a career and a job and then play footy on the side. So yeah, even at the highest level back then, professional rugby league, I think, was maybe 96, 97. It was when we actually transitioned from going full time. And there was about 8 or 9 of us. And we were like, Penrith were one of the first clubs to do it. It was just on the eve of like Super League. And there was like Brandy and Freddy and John Cartwright and MG and myself. And they didn't know what to do with us because they wanted us to be full time and totally professional. But they didn't know how to fill our day.
Really?
So you can only go to so many schools, right? So they had us calling bingo. So I was actually calling bingo like every Monday at Panthers Leagues Club, and we'd get up and it was like on its own, number 7, 69, dinner for 2, and all the old people would go, ooh, they'd have a little bit of a laugh. So, yeah, filling our days was actually a really difficult part for administration at club level when we first turned professional.
So they were trying to make you were full-time, and obviously you were training, but you'd have to wait for the boys in the afternoon, right?
Yeah.
So to fill your day, they're almost using you as a community officer,
kind of.
Going around to schools and spreading the word. Really?
Yeah, and we put a shitload of money through the poker machines because we're just like walking around the club. And but yeah, it took some guys, like they didn't make it compulsory. They're like, okay, so we were kind of like, we were like their test case.
Yeah.
So the crash test dummies, they would send us in, and there was about 6 or 7 of us, and then we'd wait for everyone else to come at the end of their sort of working day, and then we would train, and then it took about 2 or 3 years, drip feed everyone in to the point where they made it sort of mandatory and everyone was professional. Yeah. Oh. So I see what those boys go through, and it gives you a great perspective.
Yeah.
It keeps it really real, because I feel like one of the battles that I had with being a professional athlete was, I lost respect for time, money, and relationships.
Yeah.
Because you're just enclosed in this little bubble, and it's not reality. And I think, and we'll touch on it at some point, the hardest part about retiring and going back into the real world is having all those things removed, those layers removed, and with no guidance. And here you are.
Yeah.
It's confronting.
Yeah. I probably see guys now, in my time that are transitioning into NRL or already in NRL that probably would be better off still working or at least getting a couple of days a week, because the reality is that at the moment they're in first grade, but maybe not for long, just through the amount of young talent that's coming through.
Yep.
And you almost, I think a lot of footy players all would agree with this, that sometimes you're just putting your life on pause, to chase this dream, and you might put it on pause for 6, 7 years. And then when you unpause it and it's all over, one, you haven't made any money because you've always been at the bottom end of the scale.
Yeah.
And then 2, where's all that time you wasted, experience, and
what are you left with?
What are you left with? And that's I think that one of the hardest things about transitioning out of footy for a lot of those guys. I know we always talk about these big fish. We talk about your day for feeders and your Payne Hasses and all these guys, but the reality is that they're very small percentage.
What sort of programs now, being involved in the operations of a club at the Dolphins there, what sort of programs they put in place now for these guys to help with that transition?
Well, I think that the key is when they're really young is to get them into an apprenticeship or start guiding them into some study.
Yeah.
But look, once they become quite a good player and they go full time, it's really hard to continue that. It's a very consuming job, mentally and physically. Does
it become more about the player's wants and needs to pursue something else, understanding that there's gonna be something needed, more so than it's kind of like the old adage: you can lead a horse to water, right?
Yeah.
You can offer the players, you can lay all these things out for them, but really getting them to understand that they might need something at the back end of their career when everything's rosy while they're doing it right is the battle.
Yeah, I think the only way it works was, if you remember back with the NYC when they had that competition, it was mandatory that you had to either work or start. I think that's the only way. And I think one of the important things that the NRL's got to come down and step on these clubs and say, no, these guys need to go do work experience. You need to get them out in the workforce.
Okay, so you think that needs to come from the governing body?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
But Okay. Do you have like welfare? Let's not say welfare officers, but just do you have people like in the administration parts of the organisation, like counsellors, like guidance people to help with that?
Everything's pretty well.
You do have that?
Now. Yeah. Welfare officers. Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of guys, careers advisors. So there's a lot of people around.
Yeah.
But like I said, not everyone takes it on, and I just think if it was pushed a lot harder from the clubs and encouraged, I think that'd be a lot better.
Interesting. Origin's been run and won.
Yeah.
Queensland won the Series 2-1. Tell us about your journey into the Queensland jersey, as obviously you came from New Zealand.
Yeah, I was born. I grew up in New Zealand, and from a young age was always a big fan of Origin. I used to sit and watch it with the old man and my brothers. But I came over here at 17. I'd come through the system in New Zealand and been let go. So
what do you mean you'd come through the system?
Well, I come through sort of the New Zealand Rugby League. I was part of the Warriors Academy.
Okay. Yep.
And I ended up having to get surgery on my calves, actually. I had to get surgery, compartment syndrome, and they let me go. Yeah, they let me go and sort of didn't really pay out my deal. I probably didn't feel like I was let go in the right way. So as a young man, I come over to Kibra Park High School on the Gold Coast and come over to Queensland and sort of chase the dream. Just moved over as a young man on my own. And I think from then on, I was bitter.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, very, very bitter.
Okay.
Yeah. And
so you kind of use that disappointment as a driving force.
Absolutely.
That's interesting.
And obviously being an older guy now, a bit more mature, looking back, it was the wrong way to go about it. But yeah, no doubt I left New Zealand. I refused to play for New Zealand.
Never. Yeah. Okay. So it wasn't so much the Warriors system, more so the New Zealand Rugby League that you were disappointed with, or the collective?
The collective.
Really?
Yeah. So I just felt like I was sort of not looked after, and I just left angry. And I said, I'm going to Australia, I'm going to Queensland, and I'm going to chase this dream.
Bastard.
And I was so stubborn, and the hate sort of drove me. The bitterness drove me, and I come over here, and when I got to Kibra Park High School on the Gold Coast, that's sort of where it all started to make sense, and I started to see a real pathway. And I ended up signing a contract to go down with the West Tigers, but I always wanted to get back to Queensland.
Okay.
And back then, with the eligibility rules, it was where you played your first senior game of football. Now, schoolboy football at the time was considered where you played your first senior. So I actually qualified then.
Okay.
But not long after, they did change the rules, and it had to be where you were before the age of 13, which I wouldn't have qualified.
You wouldn't have qualified?
I wouldn't have, no.
Okay.
So I got in just in time.
Yeah.
But there was a time there where, in 2008, I was selected to do a World Cup training squad with New Zealand, and I pulled out, and I said I didn't want to do it. So I was so stubborn.
Yeah.
I was so stubborn that I turned down going anything with New Zealand.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know if I was going to be able to qualify for Origin.
So you spent your early days in Australia at Kibra Park, so obviously a really well-known rugby league school system in the Gold Coast.
Yeah.
And so what was it about the Queensland? I mean, you obviously didn't have a choice to play for Queensland and New South Wales, as you said. Eligibility allowed you then to just fall into the Queensland system. How did you when did you really understand what it meant to wear that jersey?
Yeah.
And what sort of process were you taken through when you were taken into that system to allow you to understand how important it was?
Yeah, I probably didn't understand all those parts, if I'm honest, in terms of the Origin jersey. I think I learned that once I got in. But I just knew as a spectacle that I wanted to be a part of that. And there was only really one team I wanted to play for, and that was Queensland. And I just felt like I came to this country to chase a dream, and that dream started to happen and was growing in Queensland. And so that's where it sort of began. And I like I said, I was stubborn. I made the choice. So had they not let me in, I don't know. I wouldn't have had anyone to play for.
Family was still back in New Zealand?
Family's still back in New Zealand, yeah. Okay. And then as time went on, once I got an opportunity, I worked really hard to try and get in that Queensland side. As you remember, they were so good, you just couldn't get in.
What year was that?
So I got in 2012.
Okay.
But, those years of 2009 and 10 and 11, they were just so good. And Mal was very loyal. But I think once I got in the environment, I just understood, what it was all about for Queensland. And, obviously it's different for me compared to some of those other boys that grew up in places like rural Queensland, and how much it meant to them. And for me, it was about coming in and trying to do your job.
Yeah.
And I think...
Did you come in the back row or in the centres?
I came in the front row. I'd just come off the bench. I'd cover front row, back row and centre. And that was probably my specialty, was the fact that I was that utility on the bench.
Yep.
But I think for me, it was just an opportunity to play at that highest level. And then I knew it wasn't going to be for a long time.
Yep.
I played 7 games, but I was a part of 2 series wins and 1 series loss. So, I just love watching it.
Yeah.
I don't really, when Origin's on, I just watch that at home.
Yeah.
I don't sit with anyone. I don't go to the pub, and I just want to watch it and enjoy the spectacle. And
So what do you take out of it? That the series was, for Queensland, I think it was all about not results, it was performance, or that's what we're led to believe. That was the noise came out of Queensland camp. How disappointed would have Billy been with that performance last Wednesday? And how much does that take, how much gloss, or if any, does that take off the win?
I don't think it takes much gloss off the win. And like everyone's saying, it's hard to get the clean sweep.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard. It hasn't been done often. And to go down there to New South Wales against a desperate side that's made some changes, I always thought it was going to be a tough job. I don't think Queensland were that bad, but I just think that New South Wales really outworked them. I think it just felt like all those things that were going for Queensland in terms of more maroon jerseys than they were blue, it was a reverse.
Yeah.
Wasn't it? The guys were just kick chasing and they were buzzing around, and the bounce of the ball went their way, didn't it?
Well, it does when you're working harder.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. You make your own luck, and I think that try from Josh Addo-Carr was sort of just when that ball bounced up perfectly for him. It just felt like it was their night, and maybe Queensland started to feel that. In that atmosphere, they feel, wow, maybe tonight's not our night.
Well, when you think about it, I thought New South Wales were dominant for the majority of game 1. Couldn't convert opportunities. Didn't perform well up here, I would say, like totally outclassed in Queensland, as you guys were last Wednesday. So do you think that, that the series win papers over any cracks for Queensland? Well, let me ask you this. Like, guys like Benny Hunt ended up coming off the bench in game 3, starting the first 2 games, didn't really have a great impact on the series like he's had in the past. Daly Cherry Evans at the back end of his representative career. Do you see those guys moving on in 2024, getting another opportunity? Or do you think that they need to start bringing some new guys through in those key positions?
Nah, I think you run it back. I just think, I think most of the side, if you look at it, is youthful and young. And I think it's important to have those guys, especially around that 9, 7, 6, that are really those senior players and just know how to get it done. And, look, Daly's looking pretty good at the moment, and so is Benny Hunt. I don't think they're losing too much of their athleticism, but even if they did, I'd still take them. I'd still carry those guys because they understand and they can bring those young, big athletes along, your Fafitas and your Tinos.
All right, well, let's talk a little bit about New South Wales, I guess. It was a difficult series from a selection perspective, I feel, for New South Wales, because there's always that consideration of what loyalty looks like at representative level. I don't know what it represents for you, but for me, it's always representative teams have always been kind of looked at as a reward for good form at the NRL level. And incumbency is important on the back of success, but New South Wales have lost 3 of the last 4 series. So obviously Freddy and Brandy and the hierarchy in there always looking for new combinations to break through, right? They were hamstrung, I thought, in the series with injury. If you think about some of the guys that weren't available, some key components there, or some guys that played little parts of the series, continuity was a real issue for them because they couldn't keep selecting the same guys and building those combinations. So they ended up with I think 7 changes for game 3, but they bring in, key components back that have been part of the Blues DNA for quite a while. Jake Trbojevic, key ingredient into why they just locked up that middle third of the field last Wednesday night. Like, a lot of the stuff that he does just goes unnoticed. The way that Campbell Gillard carried the football was just incredible. The way, Cam Murray starting, the tempo that he plays with, I thought was really important. That triggered Cook. Yeah. Cook then triggered Walker. Yeah. Walker then triggered everyone around him. Yeah. And it was just like a symphony, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Beautiful
and I think,
to watch.
And what you're talking about is form too, and combination. So I think what happened is through injuries, they lost a lot of those key guys, so they couldn't get those combinations. And I think early games, it looked like the Penrith combination. Yeah. Game 3 was South Sydney, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
It was that South Sydney. It was like, if all these sort of guys that have a lot of X factor, like Latrell and Turbo are out, let's make some new ones. And I thought there was some fresh blood that came in that really stood up. I thought Koloamatangi was outstanding.
He was. He's been waiting in the wings for a couple of years.
He's been waiting, and sometimes you just need those opportunities. Like, you think he's ready, but is he ready? And then it's like, okay, we got no choice. Yeah, we got to put him in. Yeah, and he succeeded. He was outstanding. He's someone who's going to stay. And Walker, you talk about dominance. I agree with you. I thought New South Wales really dominated in some of those early games. Yeah, but just couldn't come away with points.
That's right.
But Cody Walker knows how to score points.
He does.
He does.
He looks like, and a lot was made of Bradman Best and his inclusion. And Freddy and Brandy were really rigid around any discussions about why Bradman was brought in, which I thought were kind of legitimate, right? Yeah. Because there's been some good outside backs in good form, and this guy, he's played a couple of good games this year and has always been like, a prodigy, but has never developed. Yeah. And when I think about it, being an ex-centre, you're sometimes so dependent on the people around you at club level. Yeah. And if you think about, the combinations he's had at Newcastle with the 6, they really haven't been there for him over the last couple of years. They haven't had a lot of success as a team. But then Freddie and Brandy, and they need to take credit for the fact that they knew what he was capable of, and they knew that they need to put him in the right system, around the right players to get that sort of performance. It was a big call, but it was a good one.
Yeah, and he was unlocked there by Cody Walker coming across field, just getting him into the game. And then I think, there was that try that was disallowed at the start. Yep. But I think from that moment in, like, Bradman Best was locked in. Yeah. I think he felt like, this is me.
He belonged.
I belong here. Yeah. I belong. I'm not just coming in to fill a spot. I belong here. And that's the way he sort of went on with the game. And for Cody Walker, he was playing a bit like, I told you so.
Yeah, there was a bit of that. Yeah.
I'm coming in. You should have picked me. Yeah. Should have picked me, bruz. Yeah. I come in and I'm doing the job now. And it was incredible to watch him sort of unlock those guys. And there's not really many ball players I've ever seen
play with that sort of tempo and control, right?
Yeah, well, I think the difference with Cody Walker is as he takes the ball to the line, he has not made up his mind what he's going to do. And I would say in football now, 85-90% of footballers are taking the ball to the line and already have in their mind. Yeah. Am I going short? Am I hitting lead? Am I going out the back? Am I kicking? It's already He is definitely going the line, and he's saying, whatever you give me, I will take it.
And is that an issue that we have in the game with junior pathways and overcoaching?
Absolutely. Yeah. And playing structured football. Yeah. Playing structured football from a really young age. Because these guys are going into these academies at 12 years old now. Yeah. And in these academies, they're working on their kicking game, and they're working on, their athletic ability, strength and conditioning is a big part of it. Yeah. And they watch so much footy, and they do become structured. So there's a lot of halfbacks now coming through the grades that they can get a team around the park. Yeah. But can't create.
Would you consider Nathan Cleary one of those?
I would say he's a get him around the park.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think you don't think he's unlocked his natural ability because he's been put in systems through his whole junior development base.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say he's like in that realm of Cody Walker of playing what he sees, and Benji Marshalls and those type of guys. That's that natural instinct to create.
I would say that he plays outside of those structures. He's learning to play outside of those structures on the back of confidence and intuition as he develops. But early days, I was with you. I watched him come through that system at Penrith, and I'd heard all these things about Nathan Cleary coming through and how he was dominant at those junior levels, and then had gone on and done some really good stuff for junior New South Wales teams and Australian teams. And watched him, and I thought, I'm just trying to work out what's special about Nathan. I think one of the things that's really special about him is his ability to consistently perform at a certain level is phenomenal. Phenomenal. Like, you don't see Nathan have bad days.
No. Well, speaking about Nathan, I mean, what an environment he's been created in. You know, I mean, his dad was a great player. His dad was a goal kicker, probably very diligent and structured, who then went into coaching. You know, you got to think about Nathan Cleary's life. I mean, he would have, from a young kid, been sitting in the sheds listening to his dad give pre-game talks, halftime, full-time, watching his dad talk on the phone.
Out there kicking the ball with Stacey Jones.
Yeah, he's out there, you know, goes along on the weekend training session and kicking with these guys, Sean Johnson and James Maloney. You know, all this type of stuff he's absorbing it, watching his dad cut film. It's like, you know, the coach's dream would be to have a halfback who's the best halfback in the world, who goal kicks, he's your captain, and he's your son.
Yeah.
I mean, how can it go wrong?
But you need to also probably look at Ivan's personality.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's a guy that's going to stuff anything down your throat, because it looks to me like Nathan still has that thirst for more.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like, you know, those prodigies like Tiger Woods, that they just play golf and they're hitting balls at 5. Their dad's just on them all the time. Yeah. It doesn't look like he's been put in that environment. He looks like he still enjoys those parts of the game, those really disciplined parts of the game. They reckon he's the first there. He's the last to leave. He's always looking at video. He always wants to be better. So the way that Ivan has mentored that to his son coming through in a system where it possibly could have got overwhelming, it's been pretty on point.
Yeah, no, exactly. But going back to those guys like Cody, and that, I think that's the issue. I think with the kids coming through the juniors now, and also how training is run. You know, I think one of the main thing I learned from Wayne is Wayne still plays a lot of games. He still plays a lot of unstructured games in training. Yeah, games that have different sets of rules or different field dimensions, because he said you can never forget that it is a game.
Yeah, that's interesting.
To keep training that creativity, because if we just become too structured and we want to go 2 to the post and 1 to the right, we want to come back with this play. All right, when it doesn't work, it doesn't work. What do we have?
All right, bud. So just winding up Origin, leaving that behind.
Yeah.
More than happy to.
Leave it.
But, mate, you're in the industry, so you understand the pressures of being a coach. And Freddy's obviously been 6 years into the job now. When he first came in, I believe he really changed the culture of New South Wales. He really got them believing back in what it was to be a New South Wales player, and he's done a fantastic job. He's been under a fair bit of scrutiny over the last couple of years. It's a results-driven business, as we all know. Yeah. It's taken a toll on him, it looks like, and unfortunately his family. Where do you see him going from here? He's off contract at the end of the year. I think a win triggers a new deal. Obviously, losing the series means he's got to maybe reapply or have discussions with administration at the New South Wales Rugby League. What do you see happening?
Well, I think he's got to take into consideration a lot of things. Is he still loving it?
Yeah.
Is he really love it? You know, because there was a couple of years ago where we were talking about Freddy, you know, that this Origin job was a sort of segue into maybe going down the NRL route and getting back into that. And his name was sort of tossed up with a few jobs, and now it's not. It's like he's not really been mentioned for those jobs. So it depends, one, whether he's loving the coaching, and 2, you know, like you said, the toll on not only yourself, but your family. And I think that's a very high pressure job.
Yeah.
You know, that New South Wales job. And
for a short window though, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So he's
like,
got,
I don't see that. I don't see the same sort of pressures in that as I would a coach that's been coaching a club that hasn't had success, and the constant badgering,
week in, week out.
week in, week out. I mean, it's over for Freddie now. There'll be a little bit in the next 7 days, but then everyone's talking about finals. If you're a coach at a club that's struggling and you can't get your team to perform, I think that would probably weigh heavier on the individual and the family.
Yeah, and I think now he can sort of, I think maybe getting that last win, relieve a little bit of that stress, and he can get back into the media job. But I think it's a big decision, and obviously we've spoke about different guys. We've tossed up some odd names just purely on entertainment value, which I'd love to see. We've talked about Sam Burgess, Mick Ennis, Michael Checker, all these guys, but really, who is there? And I think if Freddie still thinks he's the right man, I think he should go again. But
for me, I reckon the decision is based around obviously all those components that you mentioned, but I'd be really feeling into the relationship I still have with the group. That would be my main. If I'm thinking about, do I make a decision to go on or not? All those things are really important. But can I still get the best out of that group?
Yeah.
Because I often speak about, the damage you can do to relationships at that level where you don't have time to manage and massage those relationships like you do at club level on a weekly basis. So you go through when you drop a guy, when you leave a guy out, how much you need to absorb in just managing the feelings of that individual. So Freddie doesn't have the time for all of that. He's got guys coming in, he's got guys going out, so... does he feel like he's got like 20, 30 players there that really want to come in and play for him and the state, and they understand what it means? And if the answer to that is yes, and I think that what that showed in the last game of Origin for me was the fact that he does have those guys, that's real for him. And the fact that there was about half a dozen of those New South Wales players that had been in and out of the series over the last couple of years sitting there in the grandstand, for me was like, he's got the boys. That's the most important element. He should go forward. Yeah.
Has it been hard for you, sort of sitting back in terms of we all have a job in terms of media, but you got to give your opinion on things? But he's a friend of yours, isn't he?
Yeah.
It been tough?
Yeah, it's I kind of, by nature, I think we're passionate problem solvers.
Yeah.
Like that, and I think that's generally what people do around Origin time. That's why we all buy into it, right? Because it gives us an opportunity to pick our side.
Yeah.
To talk to our friends and our community about, the form of the players going in, why you'd pick him over him, why you'd drop him, why you'd leave him out.
Yeah.
And I think we all do that by nature if we're passionate about the game. And I am passionate about the game, and I have a platform.
Yeah.
I've been on commercial radio for a long time. And it's hard to navigate through that, because one thing I don't want to do is put any more pressure on that group than's already on them, because one, I want them to be successful, and two, because he's a really good friend of mine. But this year I saw some things coming out of camp, and I've probably over the last couple of years that I just thought that doesn't represent the environment that I knew. And that doesn't mean that it's wrong.
Yeah.
It just means that I couldn't connect with the environment that was being created in there. And look, we only get snippets of that.
Yeah.
They're in it.
Yeah.
And Freddy and those guys know what success looks like at Origin level.
Yeah.
But when someone sits down in front of me on a radio program and says, "What do you think of that?" Well, I've got to, I've got to speak my truth. I've got to speak my truth.
Yeah, yeah.
Because otherwise, I'm doing myself a disservice as well. So, some of it's been obviously taken the wrong way by some of the coaching staff in there, and if that came from me directly, I apologise for that.
Yeah.
But I would also hope that the relationship that I have with those guys in there, if they thought that I was destabilising the environment at all, just pick up the phone, give me a call, let me know, and we can work it out. Because a lot of those guys work in the media as well.
Yeah.
And, you got to have a strong opinion.
Yeah.
I just can't always just, see the team and go, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I think, they've lost 3 of the last 4 series, but I think they're doing everything brilliantly. And it's easy from where we are to have an opinion.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I
I think people would see through that.
It is
though.
difficult.
People would see through that if you weren't being genuine and giving your genuine opinions on what you think. And I think for a coach, maybe they're in that environment and it's a pressure cooker. It's a pressure cooker. And every time some ex-player or media, New South Wales, comes out with a statement, it just hurts. And I think they would feel like, how dare you guys? Like, you should be with you should be with us.
Yeah.
And no matter what, you should be with us. Whoever I pick,
Yeah.
you should be with us. But if you're not getting the results, then how can you expect everyone to be with you?
Yeah.
And I think, like I said, it made some of those changes and got a result. But still, I think maybe dropped the ball on a couple of selection
I was
calls.
so happy on Wednesday. I have to say, like, I was just so happy that we could just all come out and just really, the way that they played, the parts of their game that probably have been a little bit missing over the opening two series, like just some of those little efforts and just some of the energy they provided in front of the home crowd. I just walked out there and honestly, I felt like we'd won the series. Yeah. I know that sounds ridiculous because we didn't.
Yeah.
But I just felt so happy for that whole team. To have that moment, and that where we could get on platforms and then start talking about some of the positives to come out of New South Wales, because it's felt like a while since we've been able to do that.
Why do you think there's that idea, or that people get that opinion that New South Wales players or media sort of almost don't want them to go well, and it's sort of negative compared to that opinion that Queensland are just they love their team, no matter what, support their team?
I think the narrative's always around success. If you're not having success, people are going to, pull the operation apart. Like, I remember the late, great Paul Green's tenure with Queensland a few years ago. Like, I mean, he wasn't having success and everyone came at him from different angles. It happens up here as well. People just choose to forget it.
Yeah.
And it's the same as with, the whole, and that's why I led you into that question earlier about does it paper over the cracks for Queensland, because, it's all about, the jersey and the Queensland spirit, and it's all so romantic, but they come out and they play shit down there in New South Wales and no one mentions anything about, but it's not about the result. It's always about the jersey. So I think that's what, Origin, that's the narrative that it works around, this underdog tag, this Queensland mentality, the heroes and the villains, and New South Wales always seem to be the villain. And in sport, you need heroes and villains, and that's just, what makes it so successful. Josh Reynolds, Bulldogs legend. He's fair to call him a Bulldogs legend.
Yeah, I think so.
He retired yesterday. Pretty emotional scenes at Belmore. Now, it's a difficult time in a professional athlete's life when they transition out of the sport and into the reality of day-to-day life. So firstly, just want to congratulate Josh on a fantastic career. I'm sure we all enjoyed what he brought to the game.
Yeah.
He's just a guy that I think everyone just wanted to play with. But let me ask you this. How was it for you when you tell us a little bit about your transition from professional sport to just normal life?
Well, I probably had a bit of the opposite to Josh Reynolds. I think for him, what a great story to come back to the game, get back involved with the junior club he grew up supporting. He grew up in the area, and to have that send-off, at Belmore. I mean, I suppose, that's the thing that dreams are made of, but mine wasn't really like that. I think, I'd come back to the game. I was playing rugby union here in Brisbane, and COVID hit, and the competition got shut down, and I ended up joining the Broncos partway through 2020, which was the COVID year, and I sort of joined the squad as just a, player 30 in a top 30. I was there to pretty much hold a pad. Ended up playing some games, and obviously we had a horrible season that year, and I wasn't in rugby league condition. I was still a rugby union player, and I needed to get back into it. It was Kevy Walter's first year coaching at the Broncos. I remember training from pretty much the end of 2020. I trained right through the off season, and I just got myself as fit as I could. Played a few games, got injured, and then that was it. It just sort of petered out, really.
But what were the next couple of what were the next couple of months like for you?
Well, tough because what happened at the time was COVID was sort of coming around and going and coming and going, and then they had these rules where in the NRL you could only have so many squad members in the environment, and what happened was I got injured, and they had to sort of trim some players, and I got the tap on the shoulder, and it was pretty much along the lines of, "Hey mate, you're injured, and you're most likely not."
So that was abrupt.
Yeah, not likely going to get back, and sorry, but we kind of need you to get out of here.
Were you emotionally and physically ready to retire? Because it seems to me like Josh was at that point, like where he said physically he needs to retire, emotionally he could have played for the rest of his life. Yeah, like so everyone gets to the different point. For me, I was emotionally and I was physically unable to continue.
Yeah, physically
and emotionally ready to get away from the game. Where were you at when you got that tap?
Yeah, physically knew I just couldn't be what I wanted to be. Yeah, that was the main part.
I think that way on the emotional.
Yeah, absolutely. When you're not who you thought you were anymore, that's a hard thing. Like I said, I just remember rupturing the bicep and just thinking, oh, this is it. I remember sitting on the field just thinking, this is it. I'm done.
Had you put anything in place at the back end of your career, relationships made, that was going to help you transition out of, or did you have plans? Like you're a pretty organised guy. It sounds like you've always had an awareness of what you wanted to become as a coach and a system and relationships in both industries of league and union. So what did that look like when you first initially made that call?
I had no plans because I wasn't sure that I was definitely done as an athlete. So when I hurt myself, I knew I was done as a rugby league player.
Okay.
But I still thought I was a
Tennis,
rugby union
like
player.
Squash?
No, I still thought I could play rugby union. So, for me, getting
let
hurt.
Let it go, brother.
Getting hurt, I couldn't let it go. Getting hurt, getting tapped on the shoulder that I got to jump out of the environment. Next thing, I'm at home and I'm thinking, all right.
How was that?
Yeah,
kids?
Tough. Yeah, kids, and I'm thinking, all right, I'm done in rugby league. I'm done in NRL because it is the toughest competition in the world.
Okay.
I can still play rugby union.
So what did you do? Did you get on the phone?
Got on the phone, made some calls, and had some offers to sort of go to Japan. Had a couple of strong offers to go to France, go back to France where I had played before, and then it was that realization of like, what am I doing? Like, am I seriously going to pack up the kids and the missus, and are we going to go back again for what? Like 2 more years? And then that's when I started to think about what am I interested in? And still at that stage, I hadn't thought about coaching. Still not thought about coaching. But I think Kevy Walters had given me an opportunity to cut some film for some young players and help out with the academy guys. And when I did that, I felt something like I felt like I was helping someone, and I felt like I was almost like that older player helping the younger player, and I probably wish I had that a bit more.
Yeah.
So when I started doing that, I started to feel a little bit of like the bug for it.
Yeah.
Then the second thing I started realizing is like, this is all I know. Like my whole life has been around competition, and I started thinking, I was like, well, the top 2 best coaches in rugby union I've been coached under. Some of the best rugby league coaches I've been under, been around the best players. Well, why don't I just try and take that and give it to some other people? So that's how I ended. But there was a time there where I was like, I didn't know what I was doing.
So you didn't have an awareness at the back end of your career when you were playing, when you were in that you wanted to be a coach? Because a lot of guys come through and they know that that's their path. No. It wasn't for you like that?
Absolutely not. Okay. I thought most coaches were boring.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought they were usually school teachers, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. Yeah. Has that changed?
Not much.
It's funny. Because when it was time for me, I actually got called back in by Matty Elliott because there was a coaching change out there at Penrith, right? And Matty rang me up and he said, "Mate, I know you've just retired, but could you come out and just help help me transition into the club?
Yeah.
Get the buy-in with the players and the group, and then just do some stuff with the outside backs." And I'm like, I really wanted to have a break from the game. Like I felt like I just needed to disappear. Because I was one of those guys that while I was playing, I was kind of aware of what other people were doing. And in their mid-20s and that, like, I knew that we were not going to 21st and 18th and all that sort of stuff. And I chewed down on that because I wasn't a big party guy anyway. But I had a lot of friends that were doing some traveling and just going away and having this different life. And I'm like, I'm nomadic by nature. I move around a lot, right?
Yeah.
So staying in the one spot was kind of really difficult for me. So then all of a sudden, all these guys are doing this. And I'm like, one day, I'm going to do that. Like, I'm going to travel. And you got the bug. You got to do it with work.
Yeah.
And so I end up signing a contract, a rugby union contract with a club called Bayonne. I don't know. They were over there somewhere.
Yeah.
I can't remember. It was like 2004.
The disrespect to rugby union at the moment is incredible. We're talking about being washed up, physically can't go on any longer, but keen to take up a rugby union
I was
contract.
going to France. I'm like, I got a 2-year deal with France, but at that point they had these import rules, right, where they could only have 3 people coming, international players coming in. So I was taking one of those spots, and then in my last year, I ended up needing an ankle reconstruction. So I played with it for the last 8 or 9 games, but my leg was like strapped up from literally like the toe here up to here, so that I had no movement in my ankle. Because I wasn't ready to finish, and we were making a run for the finals, but I literally couldn't run for the last 8 games. Yeah. And so I'm thinking to myself, okay, so how am I going to transition out of, retirement here and go over there? And they wanted me to play fullback in a game in French rugby that I'd never played, never played a game, never kicked a ball.
With a wooden leg.
And they wanted me to go and have a medical test with a local doctor over here. So I'm like, this isn't going to go well. So I'm still playing. I end up going into this doctor's surgery in like Neutral Bay. Of course, it was rugby. And then he just got my foot and went like this. Went, mate, you need an ankle reconstruction. I said, I know. He said, mate, I'm going to cancel your contract. So he rang the French people. That was the end of the deal. You can't take a spot. They said, mate, maybe you can get the ankle done and then do some rehab and then come over the year after. And I just thought about that for, I reckon, 3 seconds and went, no, it's okay. I'm done. And then retired on the back of that, but always wanted to travel. So as soon as I retired, anyway, Matty Elliott.
Where'd you go?
But back to Matty Elliott. He got me out there, put me in front of a couple of videos, and unlike you, I just went, I'm not watching footy videos.
Yeah.
I ain't doing it. Yeah. It's not my thing. And I went to Matty, and I lasted a year in that. Then I met my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, and I took off to Germany and spent 6 months in Germany, and then just travelled all around Europe for that first year.
Well, that's what you call disappearing.
Yeah, I did disappear.
In Germany.
I totally smoke bombed.
Yeah?
It was so good, mate. It was such an epic time. Mate, we would get over there, and she lived in this part of Munich. Have you been to Munich?
Yeah.
Munich's just outstanding. And so she was working over in Munich, like right in the main centre there, and in the CBD, but it's quite a little unique community. And so I would walk her to work at 9 o'clock in the morning. She'd work 9 to 5 in an advertising agency. And then on the way back, I would stop at like a cafe and I would have like sausage and beer for breakfast. Like they do, they have
really
this tradition,
immersed in it.
this white sausage, this Bavarian tradition of white sausage, pretzel with sweet mustard and a stein, right? And I would generally have that for breakfast.
24/7 Oktoberfest.
It was so good. And then just freshly retired, but with no idea what I was going to do, right?
Yeah.
And then I would walk back, and by the time I would finish that, it'd almost be lunchtime. Then I'd go to this little market, and then I'd have half a chicken and another stein, and then I'd generally meet some people in that market. It was like a fresh food market. Then I would drink with them until 5 o'clock. My wife would come back. I would be rolling drunk in the market, right? We would go back. We would get changed at the apartment, and then we would all go out for dinner and then get drunk with her friends until about midnight, and then just rinse and repeat. I would do that. I did that every day, weekdays, and then on weekends we would jump in her car and go to like Italy or France and Swiss. So yeah, it was in good times.
I think that's good though, doesn't it? Because it gets you out of that bubble that you've been in and gives you a bit of perspective. I think both of us can sort of talk about that traveling and meeting people from different cultures really get you out of this bubble. Because I think when I was playing in the NRL, I was consumed.
Yeah.
But, I was all in. And I think it wasn't until I, went to rugby union and left and traveled and met people that I came back and sort of, God, everyone just needs to just relax a little about, this game. It's a great game. It's a great product, but there's a lot more going on in the world, and there's some other really good games too. So,
Totally.
But yeah, I think that coaching thing is, I think everyone thinks that they want to coach.
Yeah.
And like I said to you, I never wanted to. But I sort of dabbled, and it felt good. And then I think when I met Wayne and I spoke to him about coaching, and he said to me, all right, then, you want to coach? He said, come up to Redcliffe and you can coach the under-21s team. And he said, ring me in a year and tell me if you still like coaching.
Okay.
Right. So he was sort
That's
of
your apprenticeship, right?
Yeah,
there.
my apprenticeship, sort of testing me out, and he'd come to sessions and critique me and that type of stuff. And I think, he sort of seen me develop, and then now he's put me in charge of the Queensland Cup side. So he's moving me up, but he's like my coaching mentor.
Yeah.
And so he rings me after losses, or he rings me after a win, and he gives me some advice, shares his experiences. So for me, it's just like, and this is outstanding. I don't think, there's not a guy in rugby league or rugby union that's near what he's done.
Maybe even sport.
In
general.
yeah. So to have someone that's
so invested in your journey.
Yeah, exactly. And not trying to rush it. He doesn't want me to rush. He wants me to just do it.
He doesn't want you to take his job. He's still,
he's
still happy plodding along, isn't he?
So yeah, but for me, I'm pretty lucky in that space to have a coaching mentor like that.
What about the struggles? What about the struggles of you said that you didn't really, you weren't attached to any sort of outcome and what sort of role or what life was going to look like at the end of the game. I'll tell you about my struggles in a minute, but and this podcast is called The Medicine, and we are delivering the medicine to people, because the NRL for some people is their medicine. It's what they use to feel good, and everyone's got their own medicine. What was kind of your medicine to get yourself through that tough period, to then go on to be the guy you are now that you've retired?
Yeah, I think like when I finished up, my career sort of just petered out. So through injury. So once I got injured, I sort of sat out and started to realize that my career was coming to an end, and this might be it. And I suppose one of the things that kept me going at the start was to keep training.
Yeah, routine.
So routine. I kept training, because I think that was the thing that sort of made me feel good. And for some reason, I almost always felt like I could still play. I could still play. I'm staying fit. I'm still ready. But it was that process of, it's that process of letting go.
Yeah.
Just starting to just let go of that idea of who I thought I was.
Yeah.
Because it's not who I am anymore. And
Your
I think
identity.
that my identity, I think all footy players, when they get out of the game, we all struggle.
Yeah.
We all struggle, because I think we put so much into it from a young age, and our families are invested, and then we put so much training, and that becomes us. My whole life revolved around good game or bad game.
Yeah.
Did I perform or did I not? And it was almost like that's what made me feel good. And I always thought my high was when I played well and we won.
Yeah.
I was at the highest.
Yeah.
And then after finishing, not having that anymore, that's the struggle.
Yeah.
And I feel like.
How did you overcome that struggle? I mean, what tools did you use to overcome those struggles? Are you still in the struggle?
Yeah, I'm still, I mean, I retired 2 seasons ago.
Okay.
And I'm still coming to terms with that. That's not me anymore. And I think coaching gives me an opportunity to be around it.
Yeah.
I think, I spoke about Wayne, telling me that, if you think you want to coach, take this under 21s team and tell me in a year if you still want to coach. I needed those players more than they needed me. I needed someone to go to and be around.
Do you think you get addicted as a professional athlete to the highs and the lows? Do you think it's the ride? Like, I mean, you
It is
spoke
the
about
ride.
it then. You know, what is it that when you really feel into it, that it is that you feel like you can't get on the other side?
That I think what you just said, it's the highs and the lows.
Can't replace that,
It's
right?
so hard to replace
Yep.
it, you know, and being able to look. This is the way I played. Being able to solve things through violence.
Yeah.
I do miss it.
Yeah.
I miss it, you know, and I think one of the things that I miss the most about footy is
That's a quote.
Yeah, I know. You know, I watch my, you know, I coach a team now. Yeah, I'm 36. I coach a team. I've got guys on my team that are 32, 33. They're not much younger than me.
Yeah.
You know, but what I miss about the game is I just sometimes wish they could just sub me on, and I'd just take 2 hit-ups and try and clean up a couple of blokes, and then I just put my hand up and
Well,
come
you're
off.
the coach.
Yeah, just
Why
get
can't
me
you do
on.
that?
Just get me on. But that's what I miss, because that was me. That's what I felt good about. That was my identity.
Yeah.
When I was physical and violent, I felt good. That
Yeah.
was me. And
Yeah.
where do I get that now?
Yeah.
Well, I got to go to a boxing class
Yeah,
and
well,
hit some pads, or
You should get a job in security somewhere.
yeah, go be a bouncer. But you know that, and then that's what I'm saying. Those aren't, we talk about when an NRL player leaves and his identity. People think we're talking about profile. People talk about missing the profile. I'm not missing the profile.
No.
I'm missing the guy that I love to be.
Yeah.
That I can't be him anymore because my body can't do it anymore. So I think I'm still in that process.
Yeah.
I still hold a pad for the boys every now and again, and you know, get a bit physical with it, and it feels good. So I'm in that process.
It's pretty clear that it's different things to different people, right? So you know a lot of guys that have come through professional sport and are now on the other side. How do you find that, you know, those guys deal with that transition? Not many, like from my experience, not many do it gracefully.
No one, I don't think many do it good. You know, and maybe people don't do it good because it's just not easy.
Yeah.
I don't think people should always think that there's a nice way to do it. I know we always have these things and these ideas that, you know, towards the back end of the year, you're doing all these things, you're setting yourself up, and then you seamlessly just hang up the boots and into a good job, and life and family is good. That is not reality.
Yeah.
It's a process of doing that, and I think most guys I know still struggle with it. You know, and it's affected a lot of my ex-teammates' lives.
Yeah.
That fact of just letting go, just letting go.
And I think the easiest thing to turn to when you're chasing those highs and lows is substance, right?
Absolutely.
Alcohol, drugs, gambling, another way just to sort of get back on that roller coaster.
Exactly, because my opinion on football players is we live out, when you're in your career,
Risk takers.
We're risk takers.
Yep.
But you live your life at the extremes.
Yeah.
Right? Pain and pleasure. And, you know, as a football player, sometimes that can be controlled in the environment, but when you're out, it's harder.
Yeah.
You know, and I think we used to train ourselves so hard, and we want to reward ourselves. Train hard, play hard, reward ourselves. We live on these two extremes, but the reality is when you get into life, you talk and meet other people in society, it's more here. Yeah. There's like a central...
There's balance.
There's a balance. Yeah. And we never had balance. And I think that's the process I'm coming to, is to find balance.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's kind of hard, you know, for people in normal society to understand. Like, they see what players get up to when they go out and they drink or they binge or whatever. They kind of don't understand the parameters in which they live their life. And they think, you know, they have trouble sort of connecting with normal people that live within those parameters of what's considered normal society.
Yeah.
And rugby league players can't do what they did, be violent and really connect with that part of their personality, then go out and have a Chardonnay and 1 or 2 Chardonnays and then go home and get an early night's sleep. It doesn't go with the personality profile within the industry.
Yeah. No, we there's shots involved, Jaeger bombs.
You know, that's just what it is. That mentality is
It's
what
all
they
or nothing.
carry around with them for that whole career, and leaving that behind, and then coming back into that balance is really important, and it's something that I did anyway. It needed help, needed guidance with, because I found the physical side of it for me. Yeah, I missed that physical side of it. I still have vivid dreams about playing and contact and all that sort of stuff. Even though I wasn't the same sort of player as you, it was still part of the game that I really enjoyed. But for me, it was, what do I do with that sort of that mental energy? I didn't understand as a player how much of the mental side of things, the internal dialogue that went on about the game. And now when I think back, it was like the whole time, as you said before, when I wasn't playing, I was thinking about playing. And my whole waking life was about, performance, doing the best, training hard, beating myself up all the time about the times I would take a shortcut, not just within the game, but within life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what I found when I retired was that, where does that go? Like, how do I control that internal dialogue? Because that was driving, I got to admit, for the first probably 2 years, it drove me crazy. It was madness, because I had all this mental energy that I was able to put into the game, and the focus, and that was really helpful, because it was driving me to be better in an industry where it was highly competitive and it was useful. But then when you come back into society and you've got this same mindset driving you to do what? Like, I was making coffee. Like, I was looking around at people. I was making the best coffee that there was around, and I was doing it fast, and I was super efficient, but I was making coffee.
Yeah.
So I really struggled with that. And so then, if I didn't have that product to put all this mental energy in, it then turned on me.
Yeah.
So then it was like, well, then you're not good enough, or the internal dialogue was just overbearing with just breaking me down. You should have done this better. You should do this better. Like, all that noise, I'd done things with financials and whatever I could have been in, and it was all coulda, woulda, shoulda, and it was all, and I didn't know how to deal with that part of the retirement. The mental part of it, for me, drove me to the brink.
Yeah.
Like, it was got to the point where like, I met my wife, and lucky I did, because, I was really I was lost. I was just out in the void of doing nothing, kind of ticking off things that I didn't want to do, but never finding what I really could put that sort of passion and energy into, until I actually found meditation.
Yeah.
For me to be able to control the inner dialogue was the only thing I think that got me through. And I practice it every day, to this day, and techniques around that. And you talk about, the balance, and it's funny how you kind of did that. For me, it was, bringing in some balance and some techniques or modalities that allowed me to just come back into normal society and contribute in a way as a business owner, as a father, in the masculine, that I need to provide balance and harmony for those around me. It was a constant battle.
Yeah. No, I think one of the other parts is for players, if you've done well in the NRL, you've obviously been disciplined, driven.
Yeah.
You've had a lot of these really good qualities, and I think it's important to realize that you've always got those qualities, and that you can put it into something else.
Yeah.
Like you said, you were making coffee, but you were making the best coffee.
Yeah.
So just having that understanding that, I think for players that are retiring, don't think that you have to have it all figured out.
Yeah.
And it takes a little while to find yourself, and it takes a while to, think what you're good at. I've spent many hours laying there wondering, will I ever be as successful in other areas of life as I was in footy?
Is that really important to you?
Well,
Success?
at one time it was, yeah.
Yeah.
And now I've probably let that go.
Yeah.
At one stage I was like, well, I've been successful, but will I be successful again? And that's a question that I don't know. But I think that's the wrong thing to chase.
Yeah,
right. I think I should just chase what I enjoy. But I think with players these days, one of the things I did is I sat back and I had to ask myself, who was I before this though? Before footy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was a good footy player, but I was a kid too.
Yeah.
You know, and what were the things that I enjoyed? You know, I loved English. You know, I really enjoyed history. I loved drama. You know, those were the things that I was involved in before I then really knuckled down and zoned in on being a footy player.
Yeah.
So I had to go back and think about myself, about who I was and some of those interests, and trying to find what I'm good at. You know, but I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to have it all figured out, don't we?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, absolutely.
But it's a process.
It's a process.
And it might take you a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in year 3 of retirement. Still not sure.
Yeah.
You know, still struggling to let it go.
Yeah.
Still think I can play.
Yeah.
But I can't. But
Yeah.
I still think I can.
Yeah. But what sort of, I mean, routine's a big part of professional sport. Being a professional athlete is all about routine. What sort of routines do you bring into your life that, you know, we can share with people in our community that can help them on their journey? What's important? Like, I mean, is it things like diet, you know, movement, you know, any sort of modalities?
For me, it's movement. You know, for me, it's training. And for me, if I'm looking for a bit of peace, I run.
Okay.
If I go out for a run, I might run for 15 minutes. I might run for 45 minutes. You know, it just depends how I feel. I'm trying not to fall into like that real structured life of like, you know, I get up at 6 a.m. and I train hard every day and I have no off days. I'm trying to, like I said,
because that's not letting go.
That's not letting go of that person who was at the extremes and training so hard. I'm trying to bring the balance. So it's about me going for a run.
Yeah.
And I don't know sometimes where I'm going. I don't know how far I'm going to go.
Yeah.
I just let it feel. And if it's time to stop, it's time to stop.
Do you ever get lost?
I get lost sometimes. But it's about, that's how I find that's peace, is through training.
Yeah.
Yeah. But not trying to train extreme. I'm trying to let that go a little bit. Yeah.
Diet? How important is diet to you and the family?
Yeah.
Is it something you guys focus on at all?
It is something we focus on, and it's something I think as a player, I was so strict.
You were?
I was so strict because I knew that, you know, if I played at 108 kilos, I was all right. If I played at 104 kilos, I was good. I knew that, but I had to pay the price during the week. You know, I had to pay the price. I was eating chicken breast, broccoli, and sweet potato every night.
Yeah.
You know, that's the way I live, but I can't live like that anymore.
Yeah.
You know, so it's trying to find that balance between healthy, you know, but living free a little bit.
Well, Benny, episode 1, I think we are done and dusted. So again, I just wanted to thank our fantastic team, Prue, Dan, who's going to let you know in a minute where you can tune in and follow along. I also need to thank my wife, who did an amazing job with some of the colour palettes and putting together some of the online sort of architecture around websites and things like that. So thank you, forever grateful. It's been a pleasure. I can't wait for next week.
Yeah, well, I better just thank my partner too, because I can't have you thanking yours and then me not, because then I'm in trouble, right?
The floor is yours,
mate. So I want to thank my partner too for being supportive and a great mother.
And telling you before the episode.
She gave me some great advice before I came in today. She said it was like a mum giving her son a pep talk, you know, it's like, be true to yourself.
Yeah. And do you feel like you were?
Yeah, I think so. I think today, I was opened up and show my true self and the process of what I'm going through. And I think a lot of guys go through it. So.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Good on you, brother. All right. Well, we'll see you guys next week. Look forward to it.
Yeah, thank you guys. That was fantastic. I think, you gave some tremendous insight into what it is to be a current and past rugby league player in so many different angles. So you can obviously listen to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts. You can subscribe to us on YouTube at The Medicine Podcast. We have a Facebook discussion group as well, which will be adding in some different conversations in there about each episode topic each week. Follow us on the Instagram, The Medicine Podcast, and on TikTok as well. But that's about it, unless you guys had anything
Just
else.
want to, we just really want to emphasise how important the community is, not just for us delivering messages and delivering the medicine, but for hearing back from you guys and sharing stories. It's really important to us. Ben and I are both really community minded, and I think the motivation for us to spend this time with you guys is about to build that community and do some things down the path. We've got a little bit of a plan that we want to roll out that will keep you guys, we'll let you guys know as we move through that. But community is key for all of us, and I know you guys as well feel that way down in Peru, so thank you guys.
Absolutely. If you had any questions for Ben and Girds, send them through, comment, DM us on Instagram, on the Facebook group, and we can address the boys and put them in the spotlight.
Yeah,
So.
and if you're a big man and you're in a shopping centre and you're in like Woolies and Coles and you're just doing your shopping and you see Benny Te'o sizing you up, just walk the other way because he wants to fold you, and we're going to talk about that next week. You sick bastard.
Oh, I am.